Okay, so as I said, welcome. The purpose of the module is quite simple, really. It's to give you, as first years, an overview of some of the skills that you'll need to be successful and to contribute to businesses that you may work in the future. As part of what we're doing here at the School of Management, what we're trying to do is make the courses, especially in the second and third year, which is why it says preparation for years 2 and 3 and 4 if you're doing the placement year, more experiential. So you're going to be working in groups, you're going to be going out doing final year projects, doing consultancy for real businesses. Okay, so you need these skills in place. Also, it's to introduce you to new forms of assessment. Let's see a quick show of hands. Has anybody done any form of reflective writing assessment before? 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, okay. That's fine, okay. There's a lot of you that aren't used to this model of reflection, and what we found is that in the second and third year, when current students have been expected to do it, they found it quite difficult, so hence why we're doing this as part of the first year. It's also to introduce you to business simulation. Okay, the School of Management's invested in a business simulation suite, which some of you have already had a look at, the SimVenture module, and I'm going to explain a bit about how that fits into the program, how it fits into the module. There's also an employability angle to this as well. Okay, so the skills that we're hopefully going to be imparting across to you over the next 9-10 weeks or whatever are skills that employers are looking for from graduates. Okay, so that linked with the Chartered Management Institute is going to give you a qualification. So there's going to be a CMI qualification based around this course. So there's no extra work involved in it. Okay, the learning outcomes have been mapped specifically to the learning outcomes from the CMI certificate in management. So successful completion of this will also give you the CMI certificate in management. You will all have associate membership of the CMI as well. There has been an email that's gone out specifically about this. You should have had registration emails. Now, I know quite a few of you haven't. If you haven't received an email, please send me an email, and my details are actually on the module handbook. Send it to me. You probably won't get a reply, but I will forward your details then on to the school, to the Chartered Institute, and they will get the registration email sent out. Okay. Are there any questions on any of that? Anybody got anything burning that they'd like to ask? Any clarification? Or is it too early in the morning? It's too early in the morning. Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so the structure of the module. Every week there's a 1-hour lecture. This lecture is repeated on a Friday, but you only need to come to one or the other. Okay, it's repeated because you're such a big group. There's 354, 355 of you in the group. So either the Wednesday or the Friday. Okay, but what I don't want to happen is everybody to either turn up to the Wednesday or the Friday, because as you can see, we haven't got 350 odd seats in here. Okay, so if you are in this lecture group, please try and stay to it. Myself and Scott Tuppen are going to be running the lectures, so you'll see me for the first probably 2 or 3 weeks. Scott will then take over for 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll see me for the last couple of weeks then. Every week there's also going to be a 2-hour seminar. Now again, it's important that you stick to the seminar groups that you've been allocated because of the size of the group as a whole, and also you are going to be working in groups within those seminar sessions. Okay, so it's important that as part of the group you don't start moving around or whatever. So the seminar in particular, or the lecture to start off with, you'll be covering a specific topic. We'll look at the syllabus in a minute. The seminar, the first part of that will be an exercise related to the topic. So it's going to be something experiential for you to actually do, and we'll have a look at what some of that is now in a minute. And then the second hour is going to be working on SimVenture as part of your group work. This may be subject to a little bit of change because we are working with some other modules within the whole business management program. So what I'm saying is there may be some of that, it might not run in that particular order. Networking, for instance, and business communications, we're going to run with the placements module, so they may be moved around a bit, but that is what the lectures are going to be. So we've obviously got successful teams to start off with, but you're going to be looking at things like teamwork, leadership, research and referencing, and academic integrity, decision-making, problem-solving, conflict management. So all the tools that you would actually need to use when you go into employment in business. Also, there's going to be reflective learning. So I'm going to do a session on what reflection is, how you should write, and the processes that you should go through. Okay, there's a number of different academic models that relate specifically to the art of reflective writing, and we'll be imparting those across. Seminar structure. Okay, so there's going to be, as I said, experiential exercises. There's going to be a meeting exercise during the next round of seminars. And then there's going to be practical leadership tasks. We're going to do prioritization exercises. Conflict management one should be quite interesting because we're going to get you to debate. So we're going to have a debate within the seminar groups. Reflection structure, and then in conjunction with the placements module, also a networking event which you'll all be invited to at the Village Hotel, where you'll be networking with other students and businesses, and a specific LinkedIn session, and that's to do with business communications. What I'm going to try and do is also get a photographer to each of the 2 lecture sessions so that you can get a professional headshot and whatever taken for your LinkedIn profile. So the assessments, fairly simple. There's 2 formative assessments. Formative means it doesn't obviously count towards your mark at the end of this, but it's feedback that will be given to you by the delivery team. The first piece of formative assessment is going to be in conjunction with the research methods part of the module. And what we're going to ask you to do is do a very, very short report based on something. It's going to be something quite random. And you're then going to put that into Turnitin, and we're actually going to let you see what the markers see from a Turnitin report. Okay, so it should help you to look at areas that you may fall foul in terms of plagiarism, not referencing properly, etc., etc. The second formative one is going to be another Turnitin test submission, but it's going to be a test submission actually on one of your pieces of work. So we're going to let you do a dummy run, basically, submit your individual reflection, which is the third assessment there, into Turnitin, get the report back, and again, just see if there are any areas that you're falling foul. The 2 pieces of assessment that are important, obviously, are the summative, so it's an individual reflection, 1,500 words, based around your experiences, your individual experiences, working as part of a team and engaging with the module. And then the summative assessment, the final one, is going to be a group reflective report, 3,000 words, on SimVenture, how that has worked, how you've worked together in groups, any problems that you've had, any conflicts, how you've resolved those, and more importantly, what you do differently the next time around if you were to do it again. Okay, so it is based quite heavily, as we said, around reflective writing. Further info. Okay, let's see a show of hands. Who has read the module handbook? Honestly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Guys, read the module handbook. Okay, there's a lot of information in there in terms of the assessments, the delivery team, how we're actually going to be assessing and marking the various pieces of summative coursework that you're going to be putting in. Okay, there's a lot of information in there. Also on there is the office hours for all teaching staff. Okay, so there are 2 dedicated hours every week when you can pop in and see any of us regarding the module. Scott and I also do lecture recording as well. I'm recording this at the moment, so there'll be an upload onto Blackboard at some point later today with the slides, so you can actually recap on this. Doesn't mean you don't have to turn up, okay, because questions and so on won't be part of the lecture recording. You need to turn up to engage, but there will be lecture recordings on Blackboard, okay, for you to refer back to. Blackboard in general, there'll be a lot of information on there as well. I've already started using it to communicate with you, so you should have seen a couple of emails coming out already about seminars and also to do with CMI. And lastly, emails. Yeah, we've all got email addresses which are on the module handbook. If you can't get hold of us for one reason or another, please send us an email, but it may take us about 48 hours to get back to you. Okay? Okay, are there any questions about any of that before we move into the main topic? No questions. Okay, awesome. Okay, oh yeah, last but not least, okay, my other role within the university is as enterprise manager. As it disappears, I'll just leave it there. So if any of you, this links into entrepreneurship, okay, so if any of you are thinking, what can entrepreneurship do for me? Is entrepreneurship something I want to look at in the future? There are loads of events that will be coming out, okay? Just look on the notice boards, look for the flyers and so on. There's various different competitions that are going to be going on, not just this year, but every year moving forward, money available and so on and so on. How many people here, I know it's quite an early one to look at, but is there anybody here that's looking at taking the entrepreneurship pathway next year? Okay, so there's quite a few of you. So, you know, this will be of particular interest to you guys. Okay, so let's get into the meat of today. Okay, so managing an effective meeting. Meetings, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, are part of business. Okay, it is the most effective way, not every time, but it is the most effective way that that people communicate throughout an organisation. Okay. Some interesting books have been written about it. Death by Meeting is an American author. Okay, and there's some interesting facts in there. 11 million business meetings are held every day in the US. Okay, managers spend up to 70% of their time in meetings. So if you think about that in terms of a working week, okay, let's say conservatively you work 40, 50 hours a week. That is near enough 2 to 3 days worth of time in a business that you will spend in a meeting. So those meetings have to be productive for the organisation to succeed. Problem is that 90% of people out there do not know how to run effective meetings. So they just end up being forums where where people talk and nothing happens. Okay, so I would recommend that for you to have a look at. Some very, very interesting facts in there. Interesting one at the bottom there. One successful company ban meetings between 9 and 4, or have a meeting-free day. Okay, so reasons behind that: more action, less talking. There's a little cartoon there. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek. Has anybody seen any of the Dilbert cartoons before? Or you're a bit young? Nobody has seen Dilbert. Okay. What do you think that's saying? There is an old saying that people have meetings about meetings. Okay? So what that's saying is that you've got to have a meeting to discuss employee retention. There's too many meetings, and they're not going to be then looking at the details of the meeting in the first meeting. So it's all going to be long, protracted, and nothing's actually going to happen from that. So what makes an effective meeting? Short meetings for one, okay, but to make them as effective as possible, all the goals and the purpose of the meeting are set in advance, and that is really important. Part of what you guys are going to be doing with Synventure is running meetings between your groups, okay, or in your groups, and taking minutes on those meetings. So there's no point in just turning up once a week, having a chat about what's gone on, and not having a purpose or a goal within that. There may be a particular problem that you've identified with the business that you're running. There may be an opportunity that you think you'd like to take advantage of. But it's important that that is communicated to the appropriate people within the right time frame. Okay? So that's the first golden rule. Second one is this meeting really necessary? Okay? If it doesn't have a goal or an agenda, if you're just meeting up, don't bother doing it. There's no point. If there isn't, or if there aren't going to be appropriate people present, people that will make decisions or people that are going to be involved in it, if only 2 of you turn up, again, there's no point in it. Okay? It's just a waste of time. Could it be done remotely? Skype, email, telephone, whatever, okay? Especially if it's just a short thing that you're going to be doing. You all probably live in different places around the city, and how frustrated are you going to be if somebody calls a meeting just to discuss, I don't know, why emails haven't been sent properly, and that's it. You've come all the way into the campus or whatever, you've all met up, but this is something that could be done via telephone call. So ask yourself the second thing, is the meeting actually necessary? So the reasons that you should be holding a meeting: if there's an idea, a plan or a project that you need to look at and decide as a group whether or not firstly it's something that you need to do, and if so, who is going to be responsible for the various targets within there. Okay? The people within the group are really, really important, and that's why we said at a previous slide there that you need to make sure that the right people are present. Time restrictions. Who's heard of SMART objective setting before? A couple of people? Okay. So for a target or an objective to be effective, it needs to be specific, measurable, realistic, achievable, and the last one is probably the most important, time bound. Make sure that time restrictions are set on the meeting so that it doesn't run for hours and hours, okay, but also on anything that's agreed. Because what tends to happen is people will agree things, there's no time scales to them, and then they'll either forget about them or it'll just run and run and run. The subject is sufficiently complex as to require interaction and explanation. Okay, so again, this relates back to, is this something that you need to have a meeting for? Or could you do it via email, telephone, or whatever? The boss, the chair, or the leader of the group, or whatever, says you've got to hold a meeting. Okay, that may be a reason to hold one. But again, if the leader of your group says that you've got to hold a meeting, then it probably is quite important. Or you'd hope so in any case. Reasons not to have one? Because we always have monthly meetings, or we always have weekly meetings. If you haven't got anything to discuss, okay, you would just go into wind each other up. Okay? If you don't need to have one, don't have one. For informational purposes, again, you can actually have memos, mail shots and everything sent out. Or because there's a perception that people don't read emails. There is a perception that people don't read emails. How many people here, again, let's see another show of hands, how many people skim over emails that they get, especially if they get loads and loads of emails? Yeah? Okay. Who read the email that I sent out yesterday? Again, honestly, I'm not going to remember names or faces. Who read the email that I sent out about the CMI? About a quarter of you. Okay. People skim over emails. If it's marked as important, or red, or in bold or whatever, then that is a good way to get people to read emails. I love the word committee. It frightens the life out of people. And usually, again, if it's a committee meeting, there is a perception that not much gets done within committee meetings. Okay, but committees tend to be the most structured of all meetings. They usually have agendas, they're usually run properly, they're chaired, they have terms of reference, etc., etc. It would save no end of managerial time if every committee had to discuss its own dissolution once a year and put up a case it felt should continue for another 12 months. Okay, I'm looking at my colleagues here, and there's a few smiles on faces. Okay, we end up going to committee meetings on quite a regular basis, and a lot of the time we're actually wondering why we're there. So this goes back to what we were saying earlier. If there's a monthly committee meeting, is a monthly committee meeting absolutely necessary? A lot of the time it probably isn't, unless there's specific things that need to be looked at, specific goals that need to be met on a monthly basis. The meeting defines the team. Those present belong, those absent do not. Okay? That's an important thing to remember, is that by getting all the team together in one place, the team gels. So it may not be that you have to book out a meeting room in the School of Management to have this meeting. You may end up all meeting in a bar on Wine Street on a Wednesday evening and discussing things. Okay? That, a lot of the time, is just as effective. It's about the team, okay, and gelling the team. So the meeting is where the group revises, updates and adds what it knows as a group. So there are a lot of other things going on that not everybody within the team is privy to. So it's about the sharing of information, and that then aids excuse me, that then aids the decision-making process. Meeting helps each individual understand the collective aim of the group. So whereas the individuals within the group may have their own defined targets and objectives, they then move forward to show how those objectives meet the organisation's overall objectives. Okay, so it's for that individual to see how their piece of responsibility as a jigsaw piece fits into the jigsaw as a whole. Attached to that as well is the very real feeling of commitment that you get from everybody joining the group. One of the problems that we've had in the past with group work in years 2 and years 3 is that some people disengage. Okay, if you're doing a group work project like you're going to be doing for this module, then you're all responsible for that piece of work, if that makes sense. And if one or two people within that group don't turn up or don't engage or don't say what they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, it's part of the whole conflict management angle that we're going to be looking at. It causes issues. Okay, and it also causes issues when 2 or 3 people are working very hard and they get a good mark, and then the other people who haven't done very much at all also get that good mark just because they're part of the group. So it's all about commitment. Okay. This is the perception that a lot of people have about a meeting. So it's a status arena. In other words, I'm the chairman, I know everything, or I'm Professor so-and-so, I owe everything. Again, I'm looking at my colleagues again. And it's not about status. The chair's role as a leader is to direct what's happening within the meeting and to make sure that the objectives that are being set from an organisational perspective, from the committee's perspective, or from the group's perspective, are relevant. Okay? It's not about, look how big I am, look how great I am. Okay? It is not a status arena. Make sure appropriate people are attending. Okay? That is important because if people who aren't related to your group are attending, like a mate that you've got in engineering or whatever, then they're going to potentially be a disruptive influence on that meeting. Okay, they're not responsible for anything. They haven't got any targets set to them. They haven't got any vested interest in what the group's trying to achieve. So they can cause problems. That's an interesting one. If there's no agenda circulated in advance, it's going to be informational. I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. I think that if somebody is called a meeting urgently, there may not be time to get an agenda out. So the agenda may be something that is told to you briefly over the telephone or whatever. But you should always endeavour to try and get an agenda out, even if it's just an email. Formal agenda is better with timings and so on. But if it's an emergency meeting, quick email will suffice a lot of the time. You should ideally circulate that agenda a couple of days before. Reason for that being is that if people are aware of what's going to be discussed, they will be more prepared, especially if questions need to be answered. So, in essence, the agenda is critical. Okay, so it must include a number of different things. Okay, the topic for discussion, obviously. Who is going to lead each topic? So what I would suggest, and this is something that the seminar leaders are going to be working with you on as well in terms of SimVenture, is that each individual within the group has a particular responsibility for an area of the business. So one might be the sales director, another might be the research and development director, and so on and so on. At each meeting that you have, you will report back on what you've done, what the successes have been, what the failures have been, and so on. Time allotment for each topic, really, really important. Okay? If you say you're going to have a meeting and it's going to last an hour, and then it ends up lasting 5 hours, people are going to get disengaged, they're going to get disaffected, and it isn't going to be an effective meeting. Put information-only agendas on the item as well. Okay, so these are, as the name suggests, things that don't need to be actioned or don't need to be allocated to anybody particularly. Okay, but are just for information. May include time and location of the next meeting. There are a few other bits and pieces that would go into there as well, and those are things such as matters arising from a previous meeting, any chair's business in particular that the chair or the leader wants to bring up, okay, and also it's usual to have a round of any other business. In other words, if people are have things that they want to bring to the meeting that aren't necessarily on the agenda. So some dilemmas here, okay, and this is really strategies for leaders or the chairs within groups. So there's an excessive ratio of informing to using the information. Okay, so there's loads and loads of information being put out there into the centre of the table, but there isn't a lot of action being taken on what you are prepared to do with that information. And there are a number of different strategies that are there and in place. So putting informational and non-controversial items at the end of the meeting. Okay, for each agenda item, as it says there, indicate status, whether or not it's informational for action or whatever, and then link those actions together. So a lot of the time, the minutes of the meeting will actually say this is action 1.1, and it will relate them back to the particular thing that's been discussed. The bell-shaped agenda. Okay, so what this means is that, and I'm sure everybody here has done Maths and Stats 1, so bell curves, standard deviation, all that sort of stuff, okay? It's exactly the same thing. So the meeting starts off with any matters arising from a previous meeting. The meat of the meeting, so what needs to be discussed and acted on, is in the middle part, and then informational only informational only stuff is at the end, or what they classify here as easy items. The hardest item. I don't like the term hardest item. Okay, probably the most important item and the main reason for people being at the meeting. Should be in the middle. And the reason for that is that some people arrive late, some people have to leave early. So having it in the middle means that the majority of people that are going to be invited to that meeting are actually going to be there. Okay, so there is something called, certainly with formal committees, called quoracy. So whether or not the meeting is quorate, and the terms and conditions of that committee will necessitate how many people need to be present there for it to be quorate. So it might need 5 out of 10 people, it might need 7 out of 10 people or whatever, okay? At least 7 people need to be there to be able to make a decision on behalf of the rest of the people there present. Also, attention is focused at that point as well. So when people come in to a meeting, they may be thinking about what they want to contribute to it, rather than thinking about what the important topic is actually going to be. For discussion only, often be presented as item 5 at subsequent meetings or for vote or decision. So, if there are things that you want people to think about before the next meeting, that people are going to have to take a decision on or a vote on at the end of it, or at a future meeting, those items are usually for discussion only at the meeting before. Okay. I mentioned about any other business. It says they never have any other business, but I personally think it's important. Okay, because the chair then can actually make a decision as to whether or not that can be dealt with if it's something simple at that meeting, or whether or not it needs to be deferred onto a subsequent meeting and have its own agenda item at the next meeting. I think it's important. Again, it may work for you, it may not work for you. Okay, this is really just down to some of the the academic papers that Shoup has written regarding this. So some problems or solutions to those problems. So participants don't show up. That would say to me, as a leader of a group or a chair of a meeting, that they're disengaged, they're not interested. Okay? Some of the things that you can do to make sure that people attend is prepare and distribute the agenda well in advance, background data for the meeting that perhaps they need to make a decision on. Okay? Assign stuff to them. So again, a lot of times people, if they've got something assigned to them that they know they need to turn up for a meeting, then they will turn up for a meeting. Okay. Create active warriors ready to participate. So if people know that they've got to do something and that they're going to have questions asked them and that they're an important part of the jigsaw, they're going to prepare more for it. Okay. And once they have prepared, they're going to want to be at that meeting. So setting the meeting up is important to get the maximum participation in that. Lack of thinking on critical issues. Okay, so people don't like things sprung on them, but some of the things that you can do is give people active and differentiated assignments publicly. And make sure they're smart. Okay, so don't say to somebody, if you're chairing the group or if you're the managing director of the company, I want you to increase sales. Okay, it's an objective, but it's not a smart objective. It's not time bound. It's not specific. It may not even be achievable. Okay, so you need to work around that. The leader should arrive early. Be the first one there and the last one to leave. Okay. If you're having a formal meeting, then making sure that all the audio-visual stuff's working. Okay, that's something again as lecturers that we tend to make sure that we do. And consider the room arrangement. Now that can be really, really important. Okay. What type of meeting are you going to have? Is it going to be a formal meeting? Is it going to be an informal meeting? The way that the room is set out can a lot of the time give people perceptions of what type of meeting it's likely to be. So some of the types of meeting setup: theatre style, so basically like you are now, okay, with me as the leader standing up and basically talking at you. Okay, so I've got apparently great power because I've got this position that I'm standing up in front of you, and participation and interruption by audience is limited. Why is that? Any ideas? Nobody wants to interact with me. I wonder why that is. It's for that very reason. Okay, it's a them and us, and this table here doesn't help matters either, because it creates a barrier between me and you. Okay, so this isn't the best format for running a meeting. Okay, although strangely enough, a lot of staff meetings within the university are run in lecture theatres like this. Okay, so interesting. The U-shaped, or the horseshoe. Okay, it shows equality of membership. There's no doubt who the leader is, because the leader usually will stand up at a podium or something in the middle of the U-shape or whatever. And it's good for using visual aids, like PowerPoint slides and things like that. But there also, and what it doesn't mention there, is that having people around you, you get this sense of being part of a team, rather than the them and us that we've got here. The circle style, or the King Arthur style, okay, where everybody is sitting around the table. There is no status with this. Okay, so for instance, the chair of the group, or the managing director or whatever, doesn't sit at the head of the table. Okay, so there's none of this, there's a throne at the end and whatever, okay. Great visibility by all participants, excellent participation, and so on. Who has been in the Fujitsu suite? In the school management on the second floor? I'm going to walk around here, so I've got a table in front of me. Nobody? Is anybody? One person has. Next time you're on the second floor, have a look through the window and have a look how the meeting areas in there are set up. Okay? There's one big round table in the middle, and it's actually got, it hasn't got chairs, it's got like buffet type, beanbag type things. Yeah. So, you know, the whole reason for that is to look at this circle style and to develop effective meetings based around that. Creative thinking. Okay? Start on time. Even if half the people aren't there, start on time, consistently. Okay? Sends a message out that time's valuable, because time is very valuable. Do not, regardless of status of a late member, recap on the discussion. They've missed it. It's their responsibility to catch up. You keep it flowing. Okay? What is really important as well is this at the bottom that's red. You must differentiate on meeting minutes, so the notes that you take on the meeting, those who are responsibly absent. So for instance, those who have said, look, I really can't make it because I've got a doctor's appointment or whatever, please can you record my apologies? And you will record those apologies in the meeting minutes. Or attendees that just don't show up. It is also really important to make sure that you all introduce yourselves. Okay? So those of you who have been through the seminars so far this week will have been through an introduction session where you will have introduced yourselves to each other. It's important, okay? Getting people engaged, given advanced assignments, we've mentioned that already. Consideration for the motives of those present. People, unfortunately, are human, so they may have ulterior motives for the things that they say, things that are self-serving. So you need to be, everybody within the group needs to be aware of that. Have something interesting and important on the agenda, or something a little bit fun, like, okay, we finished our assignment, so we're going out and having a few beers after it, that sort of thing. Okay. Things that may not be as well communicated by email. Get people to attend. We try to get students to attend a lot of things by bribing them with pizza and things like that. That's exactly what we're talking about there. That's how we're getting you engaged. Some more dilemmas. So weak traditions or representation. So if you have specific people that are responsible for operations, research and development, and they're not turning up, how can you get those people engaged? It says thereby restating their roles, so making sure that they are fully aware of the value that they're adding to the team, and inquiry on how they're actually reporting back. So they may have difficulty reporting sales figures in the way that you want them to be doing it or whatever. So ask them, how you can make things easier for them. Defensive participation. So in other words, people being defensive, overly defensive about stuff. Okay? So some strategies there. Think about having a few moments of silence before the meeting starts so that people can pull together their thoughts. The chair is responsible here for pulling things into, or people into the discussion. So if we're, let's use an example of the sales are dropping off, but you've got one person responsible for sales and one person responsible for marketing. You might turn to the marketing person as a group leader and say, well, what do you think of that? Can you add anything of value to this? How can we overcome this Okay. Charge people with coming into the meeting to kick off the discussion. So as a leader, you don't necessarily have to run everything yourself. You can get people to lead different parts of the meeting, and that usually tends to work quite well. The chair's role is really important. It's their role really to prepare for the meeting, to appoint a secretary, somebody other than the chair, to take the notes and to write the minutes up, and that's really important. It's something that you'll be expected to do. Conduct and control the meeting, so watch timings, ensure that people have an equal ability to speak, so that can mean encouraging people to talk or shutting other people up if they're talking too much, and try to effect compromise. So you have to not sit on the fence, but you have to be diplomatic when you're dealing with people. Ensure each action is clear and who's responsible for it, and check that the minutes are produced. So part of what you're going to be doing as an appendix to your group work is actually having the minutes of each of your meetings as an appendix, okay, to the group reflection. So if we move to the members in general, everybody's different. Everybody reacts to people in a different way. Okay, so the chair has a responsibility really to maintain that effectiveness and make sure that the participation is happening. But you've got a role as individuals within the group as well to make sure that you are participating actively and that you're perceived in the right way. Okay, as it says there, some see themselves as the elder statesman, the joker, the voice of reason, and all these are important elements when it comes to the whole melting pot of what's happening within there. There's a lot of roles there. Okay, I'm not going to go into those in too much detail. You can read those at your own in your own time. But you've got, in general, you've got building roles, maintenance roles. Okay. So those are ones that keep the meeting going. Blocking roles, so people that will actively take an aggressive or passive-aggressive stance to try and stop things from happening. There may be stereotypes that you find in the group as well. So things like people that are just, they're half asleep all the time, they're talking all the time, the tapper. I do this, and I don't realise I'm doing it with a pen. I'm tapping on the desk all the time, okay? It can be really off-putting for people. Dealing with disruptive members, make sure that all the people there are appropriate, as we've said before, that they feel that they're able to contribute, and that they have responsibility. You'll find that people are not disruptive if they have responsibility. Members who are silent, again, the chair's role is to actively try and bring them in by saying, Bob, what do you think of that? Or can you add something to this? Or whatever, okay? If it's a really big group, then you're not going to be in big groups. You can actually split it up into smaller, what we call task and finish groups. So a group of, or a subcommittee that's looking at a particular area of within the organisation. Members who are vocally dominant, people who won't shut up, in other words, just putting their hand up and saying, thank you for your input. Can I ask somebody else what they think? Don't have to be rude, okay, but you can control it. And it's the same with members who are negative as well. You can try and drag positives out, or just like a SWOT analysis, look for positives or strengths in the weaknesses that they're pushing out there, or opportunities in the threats. Okay, so it's about your perception of things as well. Handling interruptions, so people that want to go off topic. Identify their feelings. Look, guys, I know you're really excited about this, but can we take that offline at a later date, or can we add that to any other business, or is it something that we can add to the next meeting? The car park. So parking all issues raised until after a certain time, or having another informal meeting after that.